After a public holiday being the voting day, I hope everybody's voted and that we are on the way to new changes and new challenges out there, and exactly the same in our industry. There's always new challenges out there, and I think we've come a long way since 2010 when the PRB started. I think if we look back where we were and where we are now, we've taken one giant leap for mankind. It's like walking on the moon, actually. If there are any questions, please send them on. Just coming to think of a caption I saw now the day of an actor smiling and said, "Do you have problems with the police?" And at the bottom he says, "Have you tried abiding by the law?" Now that is exactly the same in the plumbing sector. Have you had problems with auditors out there? And the same down there. Have you tried abiding the standards? The standards, once again, all encompassed by the National Building Regulation, being 10400. That's the National Building Regulation that we all fall under, and all local authorities use this standard, SANS 10400, to put down the law. And then obviously they have all their various bylaws. And Arjen Myberg is our boffin on the bylaws and is continuously looking at them. And if you are working in a certain area, go and make yourself a favor with the bylaws, because those bylaws can have an overriding factor in the National Building Regulation. For instance, in Cape Town, the way that they are doing their COCs, they have their own COC for Cape Town because it's written into their bylaw. In an area here called Hesekwa, which is a Still Bay, Albertina area in the Southern Cape, they have a bylaw which says that they don't require a gully, or they don't want to put in gullies because of the sand problem. They have sand blowing into the gullies and causing stoppages, so they are using a different method of overflow. So make yourself aware of all the bylaws in your area. And then obviously under the National Building Regulation, we have all the other relevant SANS standards that apply to us, being SANS 10252, Part 1 and Part 2, and then 10.6 being solar, 10254 being the geyser standard, and 13552 being heat pumps. And in the solar standard and heat pump, as well as in geysers, it is very clearly stated that a certificate of compliance shall be issued by the professional body. And if you look in the definitions of professional body, it says the Plumbing Industrial Registration Board. That's the only professional body out there that has got a COC to be issued. So once again, that is quite clear. And then the question comes up, but when do I issue a certificate of compliance? If I've done work at a property which we've just done an addition, and that is being registered and licensed with the PRB, it is clearly stated that if the work is in excess of 1,500 Rand, you will issue a certificate of compliance. This is a model which has been modeled on the PIRB of the Australian authorities, and which we have implemented here. And it's quite interesting to see that the Australians have actually come back to us to say that it has been such a great success and they would like to see how we implemented it here, and we are in constant communication with them on how this thing is done. And then obviously we have the Technical Advisory Committee who are looking into all these standards, and we are looking at the old standards. If there are standards that are ambiguous, we try and clear them up. And in the near future, you will see that we are going to put out all the resolutions on the standards that have been changed, that have been ambiguous, that are not clear. And if there are anything that you are thinking of the standards not being clear or ambiguous, you are welcome to send it into Iopsa and address it to Steve Brown, stating that you would like the Technical Advisory Committee to look at it, and it can be looked at or to the PRB, and just address it to the Technical Advisory Committee. and you will get an answer on it. And if it's something that we can take up, review, and rehash, we can do that. So what does it look like? Do we have any questions out there?
All right, so we have gotten a couple of questions rolling in here. I'm just going to go ahead and ask the first one here for you, right? The first one reads, plumbers are still unsure what to fill in at the non-conformance section on a COC. Example of non-conformance as guidelines to help plumbers to identify these issues to notify owner.
Okay, yeah, well, that is, I always say that I think that little block is too small to do it. Once again, if the block is too small, the words are going to be there, see attached document. So do not be scared to attach a document to your COC, and write rather more than less, because more is going to be better. Because remember, you are now basically the same as an auditor. When you've worked on this installation, you've actually audited the installation basically, and you've looked at all the non-conformances or non-compliances at this installation. First of all, you, according to law, you have to inform the owner in writing. So therefore, you are going to do it in writing. It doesn't matter who you do it to on that form. So you are going to note everything that is written in there that you can see on that installation. If you are doing the geyser, for instance, you're not going to run around the house doing all the gullies and the vent pipes and stuff outside the house, because that's not what you worked on. So if it's working on the geyser, you look around the geyser. And you can go as far as looking at the pipe 3 or 4 meters down the line, seeing that, okay, well, there is not proper holder bats, it's tied down with nails, it's not lagged on the hot water pipes. So you're going to note that. But remember, it must be in an understandable, normal language. So just saying no R1 lagging, the owner, does he know what no R1 lagging means? Rather use the words, no rubber insulation on hot water pipe. I'm quite sure that is understandable for the consumer, because that's a Consumer Protection Act question out there as well. You must be non-technical when communicating to the owner. And then the same thing is, don't just write PRV valve. You must write out there pressure reducing valve. That makes sense, but the acronym PRV is not going to make sense to the consumer out there. So make sure that when you write it, it's clear, understandable language, and that you denote everything around that installation, particular to your installation. So if an audit comes up for your installation, you know that you've covered from A to Z on everything on your installation. Steve, anything from your side? Do you think we've covered that one?
Yeah, good morning, listeners. I think that's 100% right. Just keep it in layman's terms, according to the Consumer Protection Act, and it doesn't state it has to be on the COC. It can be on any form, a letterhead. My only advice is just to keep any of that, to keep a copy, keep a record, and maybe just, a lot of guys like to or prefer to send it via email, so there is some type of record that it has been received by the homeowner or consumer. Thank you, Maurice.
Yeah, Steve, maybe if I can elaborate on that one as well. Email is more than sufficient for us as well. You know, it's very time consuming to write these letters as well, and we do appreciate that it takes time to do this, but obviously you have to do it very completely. But you don't have to go and do it all singing and dancing letterhead with a stamped thing that costs you a lot of money and then attach it. If you've done it in an email to the client as well, and you've got proof of that, and you just printed that screen, that is fine as well. That's good. But you've got written proof. That's important.
Absolutely, I agree.
All right, perfect. Our next question reads, very quick question here. How long is a COC valid for?
Okay. Marius, should I answer that one?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so in my opinion, the COC is valid for the lifespan of that geyser, or until that geyser gets replaced again. The COC would be valid until the next plumber works on the COC. Remember that the standard says the install, maintenance, repair, or replacement of a fixed storage water heater. So as soon as there's repairs done over 1,500 Rand, that COC needs to be reissued. Should there be new work done on that geyser. So those, in my opinion, those are the two occasions where you would need to issue it, and that lifespan of a geyser is 5 years plus. Anything you want to add to that, Marius?
Yeah, that was one of the resolutions we've just had recently on the technical advisory committee that we are rehashing. So soon there will be a resolution that will be posted on that one as well. But it's much along those lines, exactly as you said there.
All right, next
All
question.
right. Perfect. The next question here reads, is it only hot water pipes that need to be lagged, or all pipes around the geyser as well as TP valve pipe?
Okay.
Marius,
Yeah. Can I run with it?
would you like me to? Yeah, you can run with that one. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Well,
on your cold water piping, obviously, you will have inside walls. So I think we must distinguish between installation, which you would have open pipes, and pipes that are plastered into walls. The lagging plastered into walls will be that brown paper, and the reason for wrapping it in that brown paper or lagging it in that brown paper is for movement, expansion and contraction inside the walls, and does not pertain to the energy efficiency thereof. But once it comes out of that wall into a roof space, the energy efficiency is applicable, and then you have to have your hot water pipes in the roof are all then in rubber insulation, which is to the value of a R1 rating around the geyser, up to 1 meter from the geyser, including your TP valve pipe 1 meter from the geyser. Anything you would like to add, Steve?
Do you want to mention the R1 lagging? The size that we're referring to is the 22 millimeter by 25 mil thickness on the actual thickness or wall thickness of the lagging.
Yeah, well, something the guys must note as well when they get it from the supplier must be able to, if requested, supply them with a manufacturer's specification on that lagging, that it does have an R value of 1. That's
Correct.
The most important thing.
100%.
All right, perfect. The next question I've got here is, where must I place my gully on a new sewer line?
At the beginning. Yes, that is a very important question, I think, and I've seen a lot of guys getting it wrong lately. They put it right at the end of the line where the kitchen is, because they think it's just the kitchen that's going to overflow. But if you do have a stoppage down line from your main sewer line, you need to have an indication where it's going to overflow. So if you don't have a gully at the beginning of the line, the first toilet that you do have, or the shower floor, is going to start overflowing, and that's not what you would like to see happening. So a gully has got a good function there in showing you that there is something wrong with this line before the whole line is filled with sewer. Steve, would you like to add?
The only thing I'd like to add is that just please remember that it must be the surrounding ground. It must be, that gully must be 100 millimeters higher than the surrounding ground, and if there's a permanent paving, it must be 50 millimeters above that height, or floor level, if I can state.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks, Steve, because the reason for that being stormwater is not allowed into your sewer system, because it's going to overflow your sewage farm eventually. And then something, if you're doing a new house, please take note that your gully, find out from the owner, is it going to fill up this? Because we've had it many times. We arrive there for the audit after the time, say, oh well, they've lifted the paving now. But yeah, it's still your installation. The owner is not going to take responsibility for it, because they thought it's a good idea to be able to wash the paving down to the gully. So you must have that communication with your developer, builder, or the owner prior to the paving being done, to say to them, what level are you going to lift the ground here so that I can place my gully at the right height? So there is communication you must, and it's your responsibility to make sure that at the end, once it's paved, it is done properly. If you do have a rotting eye in the driveway, make sure that it's got a cast iron lid over so that the vehicle can travel over and not going to break it.
All right, perfect. We've just got a follow-up question to this one that I'm going to add in here. It reads, at the gully, may you have a frame and cover it?
Yeah, well, normally what happens is wimmies and punnies, they would like to cover it because they don't want leaves to go in it, and they think it's neat. So they do cover it, but I think if you've got a cover on it, it won't be an airtight cover, and it would suffice that it will overflow eventually. But that's something the owners normally put on it. Once you've installed it, I doubt it if you have any plumbers that install covers. Steve, from your side?
I haven't seen many, but I have seen it, and I think it is something that the consumer probably just puts on afterwards, just for aesthetics. It would overflow, and I think it has a little section in the back. Just from looking at it, although I suppose it isn't 100% correct.
Yeah,
to cover a gully.
I don't think it's 100% to cover a gully. But as you say as well, it will overflow because unless it's made airtight, and in an audit, when you're doing an audit and you come across something like that, are you going to ask the owner, did you place it there or did the plumber place it there? And I don't think you'll get plumbers placing covers on gullies because it's going to be extra cost. So then you can just ask the owner and then just inform him that it must be such a nature that it can overflow.
Correct. I have, just to add to that, I have seen them in plastic, so they're fairly light. They're not heavy. I don't think if you've seen anything which is more on the concrete, something that's like a bit more heavier. Marius, have you seen anything like that?
Well, I've seen them up to having pieces of granite that come from the kitchen cut out. So
yeah.
The people have all, and it looks good for them. And until they have a stoppage and the sewage comes out the first shower, they will know.
Absolutely. All right.
Perfect. We'll move on to the next question then. The next question reads, can it not be asked of the geyser manufacturer to supply at least 1 meter of R1 lagging?
I think the manufacturer is not in there to supply all the ancillary components. Obviously, you can do that, but it will come at a cost. And the supplier B will then say, well, listen, mine you don't have to do. It's like all the insurance companies. With mine you save more, with mine you save more. So it's 6 of the one and half a dozen of the other. I don't think they will really look into that, because it's not really part of what they're supplying. They're in there to build geysers, not to supply products to really make the geyser compliant. They only have the normal ancillary components, being your drain cock normally and the TP valve. So yeah, I don't think it's something they'll look into. Maybe somebody would one day, I don't know, but we can't make them to do that. It's not part of their function.
All right, perfect. I'm going to ask that we just, apologies, but I'm going to ask that we just speed up these answers here, because we have got quite a few questions coming in and we've only got 10 minutes left. Right, so the next question, it's just a follow-up on one of the previous ones. From what you have said, Steve, so should I issue a COC for a geyser if I do so maintenance, or when I install a new geyser only?
I think Marius touched on it. So if it's any maintenance and it's over 1,500 Rand, you would need to issue a COC certificate. So if that maintenance, in my opinion, is over 1,500 Rand, you need to issue a COC.
That's correct, yes. The TAC has now done a resolution on that one as well, specifically, and that is basically the lines to which it goes. If you are going to do a warranty replacement of a geyser, for instance, COC is not required, because you are just changing the like for like. If you're just changing a vacuum breaker, you're most probably not going to get to the region of 1,500 Rand, and you're not actually changing anything, a critical component on the geyser. So we have come to a resolution on that, and that will be out shortly as well. So stick to the ruling of 1,500 Rand, Steve. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. The next question we've got here is, I just want some clarity on the legging. Must all hot exposed pipes be legged, or just around the geyser?
Steve?
Yeah, so good question. Thank you very much. What we've got is an Iopsa recommends that we do 3 meters on the hot on an existing geyser. on the hot line going to that hot storage water heater, and then 1 meter on the TP line or discharge pipe, and then 1 meter on the cold going to the geyser.
All right, perfect. Okay, the next question reads, what can I do where a developer does not want to see above ground drainage pipes and vent pipes exposed?
Well, that is a one that we have on a regular basis from the architects normally. Then they'll have to put it in writing that they don't want to see it, and then the local authority must still pass that as well. Being a plumber, you can bring it under the attention of the local authority because it states so in 10.400 that if something is non-compliant and the risk to the owner, that you must actually notify the local authority. A vent pipe not being adequately vented is a risk to the owner, being methane gas that is expelled from that pipe. So make sure that the owner is informed in writing if something like that is forced upon you, so that you are clearing yourself. Also make sure that you send a copy to the local authority stating that you have informed the owner, here is my non-compliance and I have notified. And it's something that can be taken up with your architect as well. Maybe he did not specify it like that, and he specified on the plans that all regulations must be followed. Normally they have a stamp on it that says all plumbing according to SANS 10252 Part 2 or 10.400 Part P. So if you're following that, you're in contravention of the plan approval. So you can show that to the owner and say to him, listen, here is the plan. It was approved according to following the standards. Now we are changing this. I cannot do this, unfortunately. And if you are forcing me to do this, I am forced to write a non-compliance. And just write your non-compliance on that. You're not going to lose the work because of this. You're just informing the owner that it's non-compliant. And if you can explain to the owner why it's happening, you can explain to him that this is a lethal gas, it's combustible, and it is not good to inhale this gas, especially if it's below your window coming into your kid's bedroom. So they normally change their mind quite quickly on this. I have recently had a house down on the coast where I got a phone call and the gentleman said, my toilet exploded this morning. I said, well, that's quite impossible. He said it did. And we arrived there and the whole bathroom was under sewage. And it was because it was not properly vented and the septic tank was full and the gas got to such a stage that it exploded. And the first toilet down the line, everything came out there and plastered the walls with toilet paper and everything that you can think of. So it does happen. And if you can see that and explain that to the owners, they will sometimes heed to the specifications on the plans. Hope I've covered that.
Perfect. The next question reads, at the gully, is it up to the plumber to build it or is it up for the builder to build?
A gully is part and parcel of your sewage system. If you want to make it a provision that the builder builds it, you're still going to take responsibility for the benching of that gully and that it is 100 millimeters above the ground level or 50 millimeters above the paving. So you are still taking responsibility for the regulation pertaining to the gully, no matter who builds it. It's the same with the manhole, the benching of the manhole. Well, the builder did it. You are responsible for the sewer line, so it's your responsibility then, if the builder does it, to make sure that he does it according to the standard, because it's part of your installation.
All right, perfect. The next question reads, does the last draw from the geyser still stand as 11 meters?
That is, I think, pertaining to the TP valve, Steve, I would say.
I just need a bit more clarity on that question. I'm just trying to understand it. 11 meters.
That's one on TP, where it says that your TP valve must not to a maximum of 11 meters. That is, if you're upsizing to a 28 millimeter pipe, for instance, then
that's right.
It states that it mustn't be longer to a maximum of 11 meters on the TP valve. I think that is
Yeah,
what the question is pertaining to.
So maybe if I could just touch on that. So the TP valve itself, if it's more than 4 meters, it needs to be sized up to the next size, which is 28, and according to my recollection, it's up to 9 meters total length. So
right.
you know. Okay.
Apologies, I'm just going to interject here. We have got to follow up on that question. It reads, the last draw off of the hot water.
Last draw for the hot water.
Last draw. It most probably pertains to dead legs. Yeah, that's. I think maybe get us that email address, and we can just maybe contact him and just get exact clarity on what he's talking about. But I think it goes about dead legs. It's a bit more involved in answering here.
I'll send that email address through after the session. Okay. Right, the next question reads, what is the criteria for audits? How many COCs must be audited with the chances that my 2 consecutive COCs were audited?
Well, the way it's done, it's not that you are audited by name in amount of COCs. It's that of all COCs collectively, 4.5% must be audited. So that is how the audits are done and selected at random by the PIRB. It's done and selected. So it's not of your COCs that only 4.5 is done. So if you didn't have one today, you won't get one tomorrow. You can get 1, 2 consecutively, and then you might not have one for 3 or 4 again. But it's a system that the PRB has got in place of how they do the selection. So it's collectively of all COCs issued in the country, 5% must basically be audited.
Perfect. Moving on to the next question then. The question here reads, is it acceptable that after 4 meters of TP, ones can then change to 28 millimeters, or does that whole length have to be 1 inch?
The TP valve one is quite clear in the standard. It states there, obviously, every time you put in a bend, that distance shortens with 600 millimeters, so a bend being a 45-degree bend. So you have a maximum of 4 meters. So if you take your 4 meters and then normally you end up with 2 bends coming out of that, that minus is 1.2 meter, which leaves you with 2.8 meters left. So that's the maximum length it could be. So that means, okay, so it's longer than that. You're going to upsize, then you upsize for the whole distance of that. And then as it comes out of the TP valve, you must, obviously the TP valve being 22 millimeters, you are going to upsize within 100 millimeters of the TP valve for the whole length of that pipe.
Do you have anything to add to that, Steve? To that question?
To add that 100% was the, as you go out, so your connection would be then onto a 2200 millimeters, then size up to 28. So all your bends would be in 28, and obviously then just supported down and out 1 to 104, and up to a maximum of 9 meters on the 28.
Okay, perfect. Well, guys, we do have a couple of questions left over, but unfortunately we have run out of time. So I am going to go ahead and end off the session here, guys. If we have not yet gotten to your question, I will be sending it through to the panelists after the session. So then you can expect an answer via email. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Marius, for taking the time out of your morning to present the session this morning and to share some of that knowledge. Guys, I am going to go ahead and end off the session now. Thanks so much for joining us, and I hope to see everyone again, same time next week, Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your week, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.